He thought the show was silly and didn't like how his character never changed, but money wasn't the real reason he quit. His real reason was kept secret until lately. The shocking truth? It had to do with civil rights, blacklisting, and a Hollywood secret that they wanted to keep secret forever. Roberts was born in Waycross, Georgia on May 18, 1928. He was born during the Great Depression and he lived in extreme poverty as a child. Before he turned 5, more than 60% of the farms in his area had been taken back by banks. His dad used to want to be a doctor, but now he sells Dr. Pepper door to door. He only made $7.85 a week, which is about $143 today. Little Pernell had to walk more than a mile every day to get water because their wooden house didn't have any pipes. His family had to get food stamps from 1932 to 1934 because unemployment in the town hit almost 42%. One event changed him for good. When he was only 11, on July 11, 1939, he saw 78 Ku Klux Klan members march through his town. That horrifying sight made him want to fight for civil rights. His mom had 3 jobs and sometimes worked until 2 in the morning. For her safety, Pernell would wait outside the building and walk her home. That kind of suffering made him tough and hard-hearted, which made him the man he would become. But music made him feel better. He found a broken tuba in a dump when he was only 13 years old, in 1941. He learned to play it, the French horn, the sousaphone, and 5 different kinds of drums by himself in less than 3 months. He learned to play 11 instruments by the time he was 15. He could even play difficult music after just one listen while performing for soldiers at the local USO club. In 1944, he hurt his hand badly. Doctors told him he had a 7% chance of getting his full use back. He wouldn't agree with that. Instead, he worked out every day for 14 hours and got stronger. By March 1945, he was able to play Chopin's hardest piano piece without any problems. He did more than just act, he also wrote music. In his yearbook there were 14 unique pieces. A piece called Southern Lament was even played by the Atlanta Symphony in 1946. He was given a full scholarship to Juilliard. He turned it down because the training was too strict for him. Pernell worked hard to support the war even though he was too young to join the army. He put together a singing revue just 2 days after Pearl Harbor that raised $837 for war bonds, which is about $15,400 today. He put on 247 USO shows between 1942 and 1945. He would sometimes ride his bike almost 30 miles to get to military sites. In August 1944, when he was only 16, he was hired by the War Department in secret to perform at Camp Gordon for hurt soldiers and even German prisoners of war. Later, military doctors said that his shows helped soldiers who were seriously hurt get better faster. He wouldn't leave the stage during a rocket alert drill on March 11, 1945. For the whole 37 minutes, he played his tuba. He did something brave that got him a note of thanks from General Eisenhower. Also that same year on Christmas Eve he performed for 178 troops, even though he was sick with scarlet fever. 16 of them died the next day in the Battle of the Bulge. He found fun in church. When he was only 8 years old, his first part shocked everyone in the church. People were shocked when he changed his role from a shepherd to a 4-minute speech questioning God's silence during Herod's killings. He had been in more than 20 church plays by the time he was 12. He put together the town's first mixed-race show in 1943, bringing in 7 black teens to perform with him. The reaction was strong. A lot of people left the church. Even though his dad's job was in danger, Roberts didn't give up. In 1944, he played Judas as a rebel who was mistaken instead of a bad guy, which made church leaders protest. In his last church play, The Prodigal Son, he changed the plot of the Bible story to make a point about unfairness. After seeing the show 6 weeks later, their director gave him his first job chance. He got into Georgia Tech in 1946 with good grades, but he had trouble right away. He set up a discussion about nuclear weapons and stopped going to ROTC classes, which he said encouraged people to obey without question. In a strong article for the school newspaper, he said that the engineering department didn't care about ethics. By April, the FBI was keeping an eye on him because he was in charge of student groups that were studying Marx and Einstein. One dean said he was smart and scary. Roberts left after only 141 days. Afterward, he said he didn't want to make peace. He was curious about who was in charge of them. He joined the U.S. Marine Corps that summer. He didn't fight because he was good at singing. Instead, he joined the Marine Corps band and played at more than 200 formal events while Truman was president. During one show he was only 7 feet away from Winston Churchill. He almost got put on trial for playing jazz during a military review, but a general who liked his style stepped in and saved him. He went back to Georgia Tech after leaving the Marines in 1948. Even though he did very well in calculus, he quit again after a heated fight about how engineers should act in social setting. So in 1950 he went to the University of Maryland to study philosophy. There he got perfect grades in all of his arts classes but failed his science classes on purpose. From 1958 to 1959, Pernell and Roberts were in Hollywood. Sophia Loren's first movie role. In the early stages of his Hollywood career, Pernell Roberts hit a major milestone when he was cast in Desire Under the Elms in 1958, working with Sophia Loren, who was a worldwide star, and Anthony Perkins, who was a rising star. Roberts was given a great chance when he was chosen to adapt Eugene O'Neill's 1924 play. The actor who played Peter Cabot in the dramatic movie. The movie was released by Paramount Pictures through Don Hartman Productions. It was directed by Delbert Mann and had a script by O'Neill and Irwin Shaw. Even though it had a famous cast and a literary history, the movie got mixed reviews. Burl Ives's performance as Ephraim Cabot was especially criticized. As everyone knows, Bosley Crowther of the New York Times didn't like Ives's performance, saying he looked more like Foxy Grandpa with a religious black hat on his head than like an old toilet that was always moving. Domestic Rentals only made $1 million at the box office, which wasn't very good. However, it was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Black and White Cinematography by Daniel L. Fapp and won praise at the 1959 Laurel Awards. This 111-minute dramatic feature was Roberts' first real attempt at making a Hollywood movie. It was also the start of an eclectic career path that would soon bring him even more fame. Western movies start using typecasting. In 1958, Roberts got a small part in The Sheep Man, starring opposite Hollywood legend Glenn Ford. This would be a strange sign of where his career would go in the future. The production of this Western was the start of Roberts' complicated relationship with the genre, which would both make him more famous and finally get in the way of his artistic goals. Roberts gave his Western roles a unique sense of weight because he was a classically trained actor who had played Shakespeare on Broadway and won the prestigious Best Actor Drama Desk Award for his off-Broadway performance as Macbeth in 1955. He was different from many of his peers because he had an educational background in theater. He gives his acts complex characters that aren't often seen in this type of acting. Roberts went back and forth between film sets and theater shows all through 1958. She had just finished Broadway runs in The Taming of the Shrew and The Duchess of Malfi 1957 and was now working on Hollywood projects as well. Later critics pointed out the irony of his Western typecasting when they said if Roberts felt typecast by Westerns they also gave him his best role. His time on the set of The Sheep Man taught him about how Hollywood Westerns are really made. Long shoots in remote areas, scenes that were hard on the body in simpler language than what he was used to writing in Shakespearean plays. He was setting up professional habits and industry contacts that would eventually lead to his big break on TV the next year. Randolph Scott worked together on Ride Lonesome. Many critics think Roberts' best movie performance was in the 1959 Western Ride Lonesome, where he played the morally complicated criminal Sam Boone opposite the great Randolph Scott. Bud Buttigieg directed it, and it was shot in stunning CinemaScope at Lone Pine beginning August 14, 1958. Fans have said that this 73-minute movie is one of the best B-movies ever made, 49. As part of Buttigieg's famous renowned cycle of westerns, this production was also James Coburn's first movie role, making the group legendary. One reviewer said that Roberts brings out all the sarcastic humor in Boone, which was one of the things that made Roberts' performance stand out. Male charm and sticking to his own unique set of rules that the script lets him. It's interesting that Roberts' character was supposed to die in Burt Kennedy's original screenplay, but Buttigieg thought his acting was so charming that he asked studio executive Sam Briskin for permission to let the character live 9. Later the director said he agreed to film 2 endings, but he only filmed the one in which Roberts survives. At the same time that the movie was being made, Roberts' name as an actor was growing in the theater world. This was a turning point where his stage-honed acting skills worked perfectly in the Western genre, showing that he could play complex characters even in standard plots. Roberts signed on to play Adam Cartwright on Bonanza in 1959. It was very important. Even though Roberts wasn't new, NBC had high hopes. He had a lot of experience in the theater, having played parts in Othello and Antigone, but Roberts was already angry by 1962, only 3 years into the show. He said it straight out: "I had to sign for a 6th year to get a raise, but now I'd rather be out completely." He signed a 5-year deal, but NBC made it 6 because they wanted to keep their favorite show going strong. They wouldn't let him leave when he asked. One executive said that they were trying to give a new sponsor a nice package, and I felt responsible for that. Roberts played Adam as an intelligent engineer who had gone to college. The younger Cartwrights were more impulsive, but he was the cool and smart brother. But a job that was new and complicated at first quickly became old. They wouldn't let the character get better. Adam pretended to need his dad's permission for everything, even though he was an adult. That night, Roberts told me, "I thought it would be a sophisticated show, but what he got felt empty." He was already telling people things weren't working by 1962. He said that what we talked about never happened. In 1965, he had enough. He said, "I fought with the powers over the scripts, character development, and other things. I was so mad when I got to work. That is not a way to live." He told a newspaper after he left that working on Bonanza wasn't the best time of his life. "I needed to spend some time in a different place, so I focused on theater in my area." He became famous on Bonanza, but he never liked being in the center. The sudden fame shook them up. He once said that my job on Bonanza was like Isaac Stern sitting in with Lawrence Welk. Roberts didn't want to be famous just because she could. He wanted a reason. He felt stuck because the show didn't go deep enough. In 1963 he asked, "Isn't it a little silly for 3 grown men to have to ask Dad's permission for everything they do?" He wanted parts that would let him go deep. Instead, week after week he played the same lines. The mental damage was getting worse. He said, "It wore me down." Roberts didn't try to hide his anger on set. He always got into arguments with directors and writers. He had a problem with almost everything from the start. He said, "I fought all the way for the first 3 years of the show. After that I just accepted that I had to serve my time." The fast pace drove him crazy. The scripts just now came in. There wasn't enough time to practice or really think about the scenes. He said it was a bad way to work. He told everyone about it. Producer David Dortch said he was rebellious, vocal, and shut down. But even he agreed that Roberts was talented. He could make any scene more interesting. Still, Roberts stopped believing things would get better by 1964, that "I haven't changed at all since the show began." He said, "It's not my job to do anything. Everywhere I look I see the father figure." Even though all of this was going on, Roberts didn't keep quiet about what was going on outside of work. And he used his fame to fight for rights for everyone. He marched with Martin Luther King Jr. from Selma to Montgomery in 1965. He joined people like Harry Belafonte and Joan Baez, and he pushed hard against unfair casting on the set of Bonanza. After the fact, his family said that he pushed NBC to hire real Native American and Asian actors for the parts instead of white actors and makeup. He even came up with a plot idea in which Adam Cartwright would marry a Native American woman played by a black actor. NBC quickly shot down that idea, but Roberts didn't give up. He didn't care what the network thought. He always tried to do the right thing, even if it cost him. He tried something new in the middle of his TV role. Roberts made a folk music album in 1963 called "Come All Ye Fair and Tender Ladies," which came out on RCA Victor. It showed a kinder, more creative side of him. He sang folk songs like "In the Pines" and "They Call the Wind Maria." He could escape with music in a way that acting on Bonanza couldn't. It let him think of new ideas without the network getting in the way. He cared about the record even though it wasn't a big hit. It was real and honest, just like the job he wanted to do. Roberts also kept looking for ways to get back on stage. Even though he loved theater, his job at NBC made it hard for him to do it. During working months he couldn't do any other work. He went crazy because of that rule. He said that not being able to act elsewhere was one of the worst things about Bonanza. He felt like he was stuck. He tried to get away from the network in 1963 by going on stage with Night of the Iguana, but they didn't like it. By the end of 1964, Pernell Roberts' mind was worn out. He finally broke when he had to play Adam Cartwright on Bonanza. That anger had turned into sadness for him. In spite of being a serious actor who had studied Shakespeare and won a Drama Desk Award, Roberts felt like he couldn't be creative. He stopped reading plays because the part seemed so empty. He'd get there, ask for the lines, say them, and then leave. For him that was the end of it. On set one day, he was seen using a short pencil to make thick black lines through his lines. He wouldn't learn a speech by heart, saying that his character would read it from notes instead. Roberts was ready to rebel in a quiet way. He later said that he was sad for the last 2 years of his time on the show. Roberts felt like an adult who had to play a kid because the character never grew or changed. Then there was the moment that Hollywood was shocked by. He was given one of the best TV deals of the decade by NBC. They got paid $10,500 per show, full rerun residuals, and a total of $693,000 for the season from 1965 to 1966. Roberts didn't even move though. He left, his co-stars stayed, got a raise and were worth $1 million by 1970. But Roberts just shrugged when asked about the money he gave up. He said that living wasn't that important to him. He cared more about art and honesty than money. Roberts marched with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. from Selma to Montgomery just a few weeks after shooting his last Bonanza episode. He didn't want anyone to notice him. He had always worked for human rights. He held protests on picket lines, spoke to politicians, and put pressure on NBC to stop putting white actors in roles with ethnic roles. He even told the network that its all-white teams were unfair. Roberts cared more about doing what was right than about keeping her TV job alive. But things were already going badly behind the scenes. By 1964, his fights with the directors were out in the open and very bad. He said the show was silly and didn't have enough different kinds of people on it. He also asked why 3 grown men needed their dad's permission for everything. Colleen Green, who worked with him, said he wasn't polite. Roberts fought back when producer David Dordick called him rebellious. He crossed out lines and tried to add honesty to a show that he thought was silly and shallow. After many years, Dordick realized he was wrong. His words showed that he didn't understand how great Roberts was. But it was too late. Roberts had already left because he thought TV had turned into a machine for conformity and greed. He didn't want to be a part of it because he thought it was killing creativity. Roberts went back to Broadway in 1972 and starred with Ingrid Bergman in Captain Brassbound's Conversion. It made me happy. A reviewer said good things about his work and hoped that it would finally make his career shine without the shade of Bonanza. Even though it didn't work, it showed that he had never lost his stage presence. The following year he played Rhett Butler in a play of Gone with the Wind. The show didn't do well. The production was to blame, not Roberts, but the damage had already been done. It was another miss in a line of bad luck after Bonanza. Even though he did a good job, the projects around him kept failing. That's what Hollywood said to mean that he made a huge mistake by leaving. But not everyone agreed. Roberts was up for a Joseph Jefferson Award in 1973 for his role in Welcome Home in Chicago. During a tough time, it was a rare moment of attention. He was still making cameos on TV shows like The Odd Couple, Gunsmoke, and Mannix. But most people in the business had turned their backs on him. People were aware of him and told not to make waves like Pernell did. Several years he couldn't get another show. He later stated that he never even had the chance to say no. Because he spoke out against TV so much, he was quietly put on a blacklist. He was used as a warning tale by the producers. They would say, "Do what we say or you'll end up like Roberts." He could have been angry, but he got better instead. He went back to acting in his area. From Captain Von Trapp in The Sound of Music, to Randall McMurphy in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, he played a lot of different roles. The money wasn't great during these years, but Roberts said they were important. He said he needed to get his feelings back in order, and he never said he felt bad about leaving Bonanza. People like Pernell Roberts quit one of the most popular TV shows ever. He quit Bonanza in 1965 and lost a lot of money. That's more than $500,000 today, which is $60,000 per show. He stayed out of the public eye for the next 14 years. He worked in theater, but not many people thought he would return to TV. That changed by chance. At a charity event in October 1978, he joked that he was TV's most famous loser. Frank Glicksman, who is one of the directors, was there. People who worked there were shocked when that joke turned into an audition. The next year, on September 23, 1979, exactly 20 years after his first appearance on Bonanza, Trapper John M.D. first showed. Over 28 million people watched it on its first night. Pernell came back in a big way. He made sure this time would be different when he came back. He was able to make his own plan and read over the script, which was not possible on Bonanza. He was not just acting like a doctor. From the inside he was making the show what it was. He was up for an Emmy in 1981, but he almost turned it down. He didn't like the thought of artists battling. He agreed to go when he found out that the episode being sent in which his character works on a political prisoner was being used in medical schools. That show was seen by almost half of the TV viewers that night. Roberts gave his $25,000 fund for advertising to the Southern Poverty Law Center instead of using it for a fancy Emmy campaign. There was a note that said to use it in real wars instead of made-up ones. It took 7 full seasons of Trapper John Maryland to finish. It went longer than his time on Bonanza. He agreed to end the show on his own terms in 1986, after 151 episodes. A lot of people watched Bonanza at the time, but Trapper John held its own against tough competition. This was one of the few shows that had fans of all ages and walks of life. The ads brought in $127.8 million. Roberts made about $4.5 million just from his share of the income. It wasn't just about money though. He told them the character had to be more than a stereotype. He told the writers to look into Trapper's past, especially his time in the Vietnam War, and show how he changed from a careless surgeon to a careful leader. At that time, medical shows didn't often go that deep. Roberts changed the rules behind the scenes. Not many people did that back then, but he chose his own team. He was very brave when he hired David Friedkin, a writer who had been banned during the Red Scare. That almost cost the show a big backer, but Roberts wouldn't give up. He also asked for more variety. Almost 40% of the show's makers were women or people of color. That was 5 times the average for the business. In 1981 he said he would quit if they didn't cast a black recurring role. That's how Madge Sinclair got the part of Nurse Shoop. He showed respect for the team. He held meetings once a week where anyone could offer ways to make things better. That saved time, kept morale good, and kept people from leaving. He even came up with a way to share the profits. The group got 2% of the money made from syndication. In 1984, the Television Academy asked him to talk about it. He never stopped being a fighter, even after he went back to TV. He donated 25% of his pay to a group that fought for free speech in the arts. He turned his personal van into a place where campaigns for the Equal Rights Amendment could be run. The studio leaders didn't like it. It didn't bother him. Because of his political views, 7 TV stations wouldn't show his episodes. So he used his writing control to make the most controversial episode yet. Trapper helping hurt Nicaraguan people. He also started a training program for young people who don't have much. 14 of them came to the set every year to get paid practice making movies. A number of them went on to join the Directors Guild. Aside from work, he was quiet and complicated. He got married 4 times. Jonathan, his only child, was born to his first wife, a theater professor 15 years before him. In his later years he got married 3 times, once during a lunch break on Bonanza, once for more than 20 years, and finally to Professor Eleanor Criswell, with whom he had a deep intellectual relationship. They got married in 1997 and were together until he died. In 1989 things were the worst in his life. Jonathan, his son, died in a motorbike accident when he was 38 years old. Roberts didn't talk about it in public for many years. He finally told her that his sadness was too great to share. It changed him. After that he was even more picky about the parts he took and stayed out of the Hollywood spotlight even more. He lived in Malibu, away from all the fuss that came with being famous. His house didn't have any awards on it, but it did have books, Native American art, and views of the ocean. It became a place for him to be alone. He stayed there after being told he had pancreatic cancer at age 79. There were no public comments or attempts to show sympathy. He only had his privacy, his honor, and Eleanor's love, who cared for him until the end. He passed away on January 24, 2010, 81 years old. He was the only original Bonanza cast member still alive, even though he left the show before anyone else. In a way, he lived longer than everything. Fame and Hollywood trends, and even the parts that people thought he would play.